Thank you very much, Commissioner Pannell. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight for our regular City Commission meeting. Usually we have another commissioner, Mr. Commissioner Olson, but he is due to illness not here tonight. And so we'll see if the meeting goes in just 2/3 of the amount of time, seeing as how we won't have another commissioner to talk about. So we'll see how that goes. Could you please, first I want to call this meeting to order. Okay, I got to read my minutes. And now would you please stand with me? We'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First, we would like to have our commission reports. And Commissioner Pannell, did you have a report?
I did. I wanted to express my thanks to Donnie and Louie from the Solid Waste Department for the wonderful job they did decorating the new garbage truck for the Christmas parade, and also to thank them for their getting involved in that. It's a good way to get involved in the community, and I really appreciate them stepping up and doing a great job decorating, and it really is a very comfortable truck to drive. I didn't drive it, but to ride in.
Right.
Very comfortable to ride. It looked like I was driving because I was sitting on the driver's side, but I wasn't. So thank you to Donnie and Louie for all their hard work on that. And then also on Friday of this week, I will be attending our sort of quarterly meetings that we have with the Squaxin Tribe on water issues, and that will be Friday morning. So that is my report.
All right. Thank you very much. This week, I will tomorrow morning be attending a left board meeting. Wednesday, I'll be at a mayor's exchange. And on, it looks like on Friday, I'll be doing a ribbon cutting. The Graham's Hair Works is changing its name to Studio 125 Salon, so I'll be in the ribbon cutting mode there on Friday. I think we had a great parade this year, and I think we had another event on Friday night. Downtown Merchants Association put on a downtown event, and I thought it was a great event too. It's always fun to close streets down and light fires in the proper burning facilities that they provide. We didn't just burn things up, but anyway, I really enjoyed myself, and I thought it was great. We have an opportunity 2 times in the evening for general public comment. If anybody would like to speak, we have an opportunity. You'd have to sign in on that sheet and state your name and your address. But we also are going to have some other public testimony time for specific items, and so that'll be coming a little bit later. So I don't think we have anybody signed up at this time for just general public comment. Very good. At this time, we're going to recess out of our regular meeting and open a public hearing. Okay, this public hearing is concerning our 2013 final budget, and that will be administered or presented by our Administrator Dave O'Leary and Financial Services Director Kathy Byerly.
At this time, it's pretty much the same as presentation as we gave for the Metropolitan Park District. On November the 5th, we established a record of the budget, so if people want to know what's in it, that's where we made the large formal presentation. I did want to update you, not because there's too much in the way of recommendations that change, but because just some new information came along. One of the things that was uncertain at the time is that we had made grants for what we called our paver project, which is to repave a section of First Street from Railroad up to Pine and in that area. And I should tell you that grant was approved, and so now we can pave that. The other one was the long-awaited Pioneer Way Lake Boulevard street work, which is if you know that area, you know that those streets are in very poor condition, and we did at long last get a grant to do the work in excess of $3 million, and we have the match money in place for that project as well. That was put in the budget in the hopes that we would get it, and we did. So we're going to be able to do those projects. And I think Kathy has one more change, and then that'll be it for the budget presentation.
Okay.
There was one change in the general fund. The total general fund remained the same, but if you look in your packet, the very last page, the amount in the capital expenditures changed, and It reduced by $38,363, and up in the financial services, that increased by that same amount. This was due to, we're at the point we can analyze that contract for the new system, and there's pieces of it that aren't going to be capitalized, so we figured we might as well make the change right now, so we don't have to come back to you next year and ask for the change. So again, the total budget remains the same. It's just a identification of a categorization of whether it's operational versus capital. That was the only change.
That concludes staff's report.
Okay, any questions and comments by my fellow commissioner? We've been through several meetings, and we thank you very much, Kathy, for your hard work on this budget. I know this time of year you're putting many hard hours in doing this, and you're doing a great job. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, at this time, if there's any public testimony, you would please sign in, and if you want to speak about this on this issue. Seeing none on this one, then it indicates that staff will prepare 2013 budget ordinance for consideration at the December 10th meeting. Okay. Okay, so at this time I'm going to close this public hearing and ask if my fellow commissioner concurs with staff's recommendation, and if so, they will bring this forward next week. Okay, we concur on that. So we are going to now recess out of our regular meeting and open another public hearing. And this public hearing is concerning our comprehensive plan amendment, and it will be presented by our senior planner, Jason Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor Krantz, Commissioner Pennell. What you have before you this evening are the city's proposed comprehensive plan amendments for 2012, and it consists of basically two separate actions. One being a comprehensive text amendment to strike the current economic development element in favor of a revised, more updated version, and the other involves a land use map designation amendment and rezone for a piece of property associated with Mason General Hospital. First one, I guess I'll take them in two pieces. First one involves an update to the city's economic development element, which we're required by the revised Code of Washington to have in our comprehensive plan. It's a required element. Some of the language had become dated, and it was proposed to update this language. Now, the initial draft version that the Commission saw, I believe, at their retreat earlier this year, has been amended relative to some comments received from the public during the environmental review, public noticing portion of the process here for comp plan amendments. But it's also been updated a little bit to deal with the changing nature of a couple projects that were identified in there. Namely, pages 3 and 5, and this is in attachment 1 of your staff brief. It shows up in strikeout and underline what has changed from the original version. Pages 3 and 5 were amended just to update the descriptions of a couple of particular projects, namely, I believe, the Shelton Hills proposal and the Johns Prairie water line extension that's referenced in there. There's also some proposed amendment to the language in policies E1C and E4C that don't really change the intent of the policy, they just change the language within it. But then particularly, what I want to bring your attention to are some comments received. We did receive one comment letter, an email from a citizen, and I attached that as attachment 6, the physical email we received. And the concerns basically fall into 3 categories. One being on page 4, there's a paragraph that's under the header, Barriers to Economic Development. The commenter contends that the section involved there, it identifies a segment of the public that we identified as local residents, and they took offense to that statement, saying that mischaracterizes a specific segment of the public, and the response to that is we agree, and are proposing to change that wording to some stakeholders, because that's what was identified in the section. And what it refers to, the whole paragraph just refers to the dialogue that's had concerning particular projects, both in the city, in the county, at the port. So take that for what it's worth. That's the recommended change for that. And then there are a number of concerns the resident expressed regarding potential environmental impacts as it relates to a few different policy statements, particularly E1D and E1B, that both of those statements basically identify a desire on the city's part to expedite environmental permitting and as it goes for identifying new lands for industrial uses, but also goes a step further and wants to encourage us to identify lands for a new industrial park. The response I would have to that is the expedited review reference doesn't mean to imply at all that any required environmental steps wouldn't be covered. The intent there is maybe to allow for, with commission's approval, the city to participate in like a planned action sort of thing, the Hall Equities development west of the highway is, I suppose, a decent example of that. You've got a developer in hand that has a number of uses identified that they want to do. If the city can help facilitate kind of the heavy lifting, as it were, of environmental review for a particular project, we'd be more than happy to do that. And then as specific projects come in, you can kind of tier off that overall environmental review and kind of hone down to the specific nuances of that use, if that makes sense. I think that's more the vision of what was proposed there. So basically, we're, of course, recommending to open the public hearing, take comments on the element, and barring no changes, we are recommending approval of that element. There is an attached ordinance that would specifically approve that amendment. I've broken them into basically 3 separate ordinances. The second item that's on the comp plan amendments for this year involves a land use map amendment and rezone for approximately 4 acres of land located directly south of Mason General Hospital. It's the treed piece of property located to the west of 13th Street and to the south and east of the United Methodist Church. If that makes sense? That's the church is on the intersection of G Street and King Street. The southern extent of this particular piece of property would be on E Street. I think the applicant submitted a very comprehensive kind of assessment of the reasons for their request. Basically, it identifies a number of goals and policies in our comprehensive plan that desire to consolidate medical facilities, to have development that's compatible with surrounding land uses, things of that nature. And in this case, if you look at the reality of the development around that area, you've got a very sizable existing hospital campus to the north. You've got access provided by North 13th, which is an arterial, a local arterial, with mostly multifamily uses around it. So long story short, from staff standpoint, we think it's a better fit to change this property from neighborhood residential, which is primarily a single-family residential zoning, to medical educational, which would allow for the consideration of the campus to move farther south and allow them room to expand in the future. I have broken that up into 2 separate ordinances. One would be to authorize the land use map amendment in the comprehensive plan. The second is to allow for the rezone. And I suppose that is all I have for you right now, unless you have any questions. And I would welcome any questions you might have.
I had a question. Any changes or anything that we would want to do concerning anything with ecology? Isn't the federal and the state, don't those requirements come in and pretty much supersede? And isn't that like SEPA and,
Are you referring to the concerns cited with the economic development element?
Yeah,
certainly.
I mean, so the city of Shelton, we are constricted by those regulations, aren't we, pretty much?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, we would have to follow the State Environmental Policy Act with everything. I mean, no action on a comprehensive plan could supersede those requirements.
Okay. Commissioner Pennell, do you have a question?
Mayor, I'm sensing you're asking about the process of changing how environmental review might occur on a project.
Yeah.
The state code has provisions for a planned action like we're describing here, that is in place now. So we would just be consistent with the regulations that the state has provided to allow these kind of economic development activities to occur.
Right.
Well, and I don't think I'd be going too far to add any action the city might undertake, of course, would be directed by the commission. I mean, no particular project, to my knowledge, has been identified at this point, but it would be, what this would allow is the avenue for the city to approach the commission, the staff, to approach the commission and say, hey, look, we've been talking with a developer, developers, or landowners, and we've targeted this type of use. I mean, that, if it sounds great, it's because it is, I think, at this point. It would just allow the door to open to that sort of thing.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much, Jason. Yes.
I want to just make sure you're clear, Jason. The door is already open for that kind of activity in Shelton already, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we're not saying because we passed this comp plan amendment that now we can do a planned action. We can already do a planned action.
Excellent point. Yeah, I didn't mean to imply we can't do it now. It just, it comes more in line with, our goals and policies and the direction
Yes.
on a moving forward basis.
Well, now I think is the opportunity for public testimony. And so I think this is the issue that you all wanted to speak on, if that's correct. And that you would need to come in, and all you need to do is a name and an address. You state your name and address for the record. And we have like a 3-minute time frame thing on this. And if you choose, because you're here, and to go a little more, that's fine. I mean, if you're in the middle of a sentence, but we'll do this just to kind of keep the meeting kind of moving along. So we don't want to cut anybody off or anything like that. Okay, so we have 3 people that want to speak, and so whoever wants to come up first can come on up and state your name and address for the record, and we can begin. And you can come in whatever order you would like. So there's 3 people here, who signed in. So. Yep. Yeah, if it's easy to use. Or on the chairs or whatever you would like to do, it'd be fine, however you want to do it. Oh, something like that. It's fine. Yeah, you can stand right there. That looks good. Yeah. Shelton. Yeah, I was reading Shelton, and so. And if you just state your name and address for the record, and then you can begin. And.
Okay. My name is Terry Thompson. I live at 201 East Paintbrush Lane, Union, Washington, and I believe I was the only person that commented on the comprehensive plan. I didn't plan on saying this, but I have to after hearing Jason tonight. It was a misunderstanding about the wording on the barriers to economic development, because I really was not bothered by the word residents, because I thought that is what they meant by that. What I was bothered with was the word incivility, because that implies rude, it implies all kinds of things where if you study about what is actually good in a community, it's when the citizens actually do take part in and give public testimony and comment and do things right. I don't know of anybody. If there is, there's only 1 or 2 people in the area that I can even think of that go out and are crazy. So I
used to be one of them. So.
Yeah. I think most of us handle ourselves well. So, and most of us are grandparents at least too. So I think that I was pretty. That word really bothered me in there, and I researched the word. There is, and I do have something I'm going to give you. There is a actual group that is called the National Civility Center, and I actually copied off the things that they had to say regarding about incivility in a community. I really would consider that part be changed, because I don't think that that's really a good thing. I don't think it's advantageous to this actual document. And so to move on to what I was actually going to talk about is the other two issues, the expediting permitting of environmental review and looking for an additional 100 acres of industrial land, Johns Prairie or north of Sanderson Field. I brought in the map tonight. I have several things that I have marked that I'd like to go over with you. And the whole region, I think I'm loud enough, okay? So the whole region here is in what do we call the Puget Sound Aquifer area. Am I in the wrong one?
No, I'm just trying to get her to turn this mic on.
Oh, okay. The Puget Sound Aquifer area, so the whole area is aquifer. This area, all in through here, is both Class 1 and Class 2 aquifer. That means that anything's going to travel, Class 1 travels 2 miles in a year. Whatever toxin is on the ground is going to go 2 miles in 1 year. Class 2, it's 1 mile in a year. This is the directional flow from the Sanderson Field area. It heads exactly towards Shelton Springs. It's documented in all the information that is where it goes. The area out here on Johns Prairie, the aquifers go towards Oakland Bay. There's a presently known contaminated site on or around Sanderson Field, and I've listed a few of those on there. They go from the Shelton City dump, which is the lowest one, up to Goose Lake, Sanderson Field, the Port of Shelton. There is a biosolid application site that they were using at the correction center, the Mason County landfill, and also the Simpson-Dayton landfill. All of the landfills are unlined, and they are on top of the Class 1 and 2 aquifers, and we know what that means. That I'm concerned about chemicals and industrial chemicals, and they are cancer-causing. I am concerned because this area has the #1 cancer incident in the state of Washington. So to expedite, and if you need any information, I have boxes and reams, but to expedite any environmental information, we have a real severe issue here because many, many years went by that there was no big permitting process. You did whatever. And we're living with the consequences of that now, I know. And I would just really look for us as a community to say, we need to start cleaning up some of these sites before we start making more. Anyway, I have tonight, I'm going to give you, I didn't read my long thing I read. I'm going to give it to you guys as your document. And then I also have a little thing I put together on Jeopardy questions, Jeopardy water quality questions. And so I'm going to send them home with all of you, and that's it.
Wow. Thank you for speaking very civil.
These are actually in that, but I'll speak
Okay,
that.
now we can leave for Commissioner Olson also.
Oh, okay. I've
Thank-
never been uncivil.
No, I have, and I've been corrected by it, so I changed my ways. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Terry. We had a couple other people that wanted to speak tonight, and so we would welcome those. Anyone else like to say a little bit more here? Come and just say your name for the record.
Patricia Vanderhay, 111 Southeast Lupin Place, Shelton. Maybe I'm considered one of the overly aggressive, I don't know. I am making the following comments and asking questions concerning the statement, barriers to economic development. What is being excessively aggressive in opposition to local development? Specifically, how do comments become a barrier to economic development? And who is responsible for this statement being put in there? It is a citizen's right, given by the Bill of Rights, to speak against proposals that are egregious in their conception and execution. If it can harm in any way the health and welfare of the citizens, any inhabitant of this area has a right to object. We are not in a totalitarian country. If the project is compatible to the area, does not pollute or contaminate, does not try to bypass environmental issues, there should be no problem passing public scrutiny. A feeling of apprehension and distrust is felt by the citizenry when new business proposals come up because so little attention is given to the SEPA checklist. In short order, a DNS is issued. There is an appearance that special interests are given preferential treatment and public welfare is not considered important. Therefore, this insulting, incorrect, libelous, and inappropriate statement needs to be removed from the City of Shelton's comprehensive plan. Unless you can give instances and documentation of barriers to economic development, you are smearing the reputation of anyone who strongly disagrees and dares to say so in public. The only way economic development has a barrier is in the fact that many of the proposals to do business here are inappropriate and will harm the citizens, but make big money for special interests. A case in point was the Dodge monster that was being crammed down our throats. After that horror, it is not surprising that there is a careful scrutiny of other proposals to make sure it does not happen again. And I submit this to public record.
Thank you very much. Pat. Next is Denny Hamilton.
When I'm not holding signboards for people, I am a fire commissioner in District 2. My name's Denny Hamilton. 381 Northeast Tiger Way in Belfair. I have been, for the last year or so, I was a candidate for county commissioner, and as a consequence of running for county commissioner, I learned a hell of a lot about Mason County. And the other thing that brings me to this discussion tonight is the fact that I have worked for 30 years in the field of emergency management. And one of the things that I've learned over the years of working in emergency management is that it's the attitude that people have about problems is that we hope it doesn't happen on my watch, and let the next guys deal with this problem. The problem is that we have the potential here in Mason County, and in particularly in this area that we're in right now, of a significant problem with water quality. And what I think, I've been working with a group for more than a year now. We call ourselves kind of loosely Aquifer 101, because we are concerned about the aquifer that Terry mentioned. And what I'd just like to say is I think we have an opportunity here in Shelton to learn from mistakes that were made in a place not very far away, and that was in Tumwater. Tumwater had a problem with water quality some years ago, and they ignored it, and they ignored it, and they ignored it, and then it cost them multi-million dollars to fix. What I would like to be able to do is be a representative of this county as a person, as a citizen, to be able to say to anybody who wants to come to live here or to set up a business here in Shelton or in Mason County, that you can count on the fact that we have really good quality water. We can't say that now because we really don't know. And the reason we don't know is that the testing that we do of the water that we drink, it does not adequately measure all the kinds of potential pollutants that are in the water nowadays from things like human waste. We have up on the Johns Prairie, you're all familiar with a place called Webb Hill and the North Ranch, where they're, among other things, dumping sewage sludge on the ground up there, right on top of a Class 1, Class 2 aquifer. They've been doing it for 20 years. There are 6 test wells that are on the perimeter of that facility that are not regularly tested, and they're not tested for pharmaceuticals or heavy metals. They're tested for nitrates and fecal coliform, but they're not tested for the kinds of things that we know are cancer-causing. So what I am suggesting is that the city should make a plan, to a plan of action or whatever you call it, to do comprehensive testing of the water that comes into the system that provides the water for the citizens of Shelton, and make sure that the water in the wells around the test wells around Webb Hill and around Goose Lake and Shelton City Landfill are tested so that we can honestly say and tested independently, so we can honestly say
4 minutes. For
okay.
You, that's okay.
We can honestly say that our water is high quality, so that we don't have to turn around and say to somebody who comes here, "Sorry, you walked into a landmine." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? This is the public testimony time, and I appreciate your comments. Well, it is staff's recommendation that we have the first reading of this ordinance, and today place the second reading on each on the consent agenda for December 10th, if we concur, if the commissioners concur. There's two of us here. And Commissioner Fennell, you have any thoughts about this? Or, we've heard some public testimony, and I think we owe it to you to ponder what you've said and to take it into consideration.
I would suggest that it go on old business and bring it back that way, especially since Commissioner Olson is not.
Commissioner Olson is not here. I would make a comment. I do believe that we need to make sure that our water quality is good. And I know in my past career I was a builder, and I know that the regulations on septics, for example, went from when I started, you got a septic system for $500, and then it went up to like $1,000, then $1,500, then $2,000, and then the new Glendon systems or other kinds of sophisticated systems are now into the tens of twenties of thirties of thousands of dollars. And so I do know that that would help in the aquifer quality control. So I do know that that regulation is pretty strong. And I do know that the city of Shelton, has to obey the rules I've already said from the federal and the state on that. So, it's hard to be educated on everything that there is, but I think due to your public comment, I think we need another week to think about this. So at this time, I think what I'd like to do is follow Commissioner Pennell's lead on this, and we'll postpone this first reading until our next commission. We're just going to put this back one more week, so that will be December 10th under old business.
We can have the first reading and then just bring the second reading back under old business.
Okay. Well, I think we can do it that way because it isn't final until after we've had our second reading. So, all right, well, thank you for that. So at this time, it looks like we have concurred that we're going to have the first reading on this ordinance today, and that the second reading will be placed not on the consent agenda, but be placed under old business. Okay, that's what we're planning to do. Questions or comments?
I just wanted to add one comment. I neglected to read this into the record. I did receive an emailed comment regarding the hospital request, the Mason General Hospital land use map amendment and rezone. Received it this morning. I distributed a paper copy to you. It was on your desk before the meeting, and it basically says, basically these neighbors and myself, the writer of the email, have no objection to the rezone request. The property will be in good hands. The thought that the 3 acres might become a giant nursery for Scotch broom when the trees are taken down lingers, but we will see. So that's...
Yeah, my personal feelings, this is what's happening in the hospital area there, that I don't have a problem with that. We've been through this for a year, and that's not an issue that I would have concerning this. So I feel in my own, the hospital property is not an issue with me.
And that was going to be my second comment. Is it your intent to place the reading of all 3 on old business, or the one dealing with the economic, because I did break them up into separate ordinances.
Following proper protocol here, okay, can we separate these and can we vote on these separate then? Is that, can we divide this up? I don't know. I mean, you know, we're entering into semi-uncharted territory with public hearings and things like this. And
Mayor,
closing and research, yes.
I might be able to address that.
Okay.
We are allowed one annual comprehensive plan update. I would prefer that your action to amend the comprehensive plan be one single action at one meeting.
Okay.
If that means putting them all on old business, that would be a preferred option.
That's what I think we'll do at this time. Okay, so at this time, I think we will close the public hearing. So that part is closed, and we're going to request Leslie Ann to have the first reading of this ordinance, and that we are going to, instead of placing this on the consent agenda for December 10th, we're going to be placing it under old business. Okay?
Ordinance number 18171212, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending the city's comprehensive plan. Ordinance number 1818-1212, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending the city's comprehensive plan and future land use map. Ordinance number 1819-1212, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending the city's zoning map to rezone real property from neighborhood residential to medical educational.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right, that ends that section. We're moving on with the rest of our meeting now at this time, I believe, unless there's any other further comment about this. And so we are a consent agenda. Have Commissioner Purnell, have you had opportunity to read the material in your consent agenda?
Yes.
If yes, Leslie Ann, could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda, vouchers numbered 79796 through 79860 in the amount of $250,706.42. Commission meeting minutes of study session of November 13th, 2012. MASCOM facilities lease. Easement agreement with the Washington State Patrol. Authorize the mayor to sign when returned from Washington State Patrol.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Old business is our First Street paver project, Transportation Improvement Board. It says board, is that correct? TIB, board? And so that's going to be a briefing presented by our city engineer, Mike Michael.
Mayor, Commissioner Purnell, thank you. As Dave mentioned in the briefing for the budget process, this is one of our successes here this fall as far as funding for our upcoming planned projects. We talked about this a little bit last week, and the big question we had was the gas tax agreement.
Yeah.
Well, as we found out, our fuel tax agreement, that's what they called it. We have since found out in receiving the final packet that that's actually the new name for the grant agreement. So, and the best we can figure out is it's only because the funding for this grant program comes out of the fuel tax dollars. So
that was our humor for the week there.
Yeah, that's right. It would actually made it pretty easy. So instead of 3 forms to fill out, we actually only have 2. We have the fuel tax agreement, which basically stipulates the conditions under which we receive this grant money. And of particular interest is the 10% match that the city is required to provide. As Dave and Kathy both mentioned, the budget that's coming forward next week for final adoption includes that grant match, at least for the portion that's needed for 2013. There will be a small portion requested for 2012 to get the design process moving. When that comes forward next Monday, we were not able to get the scope and budget completed in time for this evening's meeting. So what we have in front of you this evening is the final documents from TIB. There's actually a copy of the congratulation letter that I attached, as well as a copy of the agreement itself, and a supplemental status form that's required to also be sent back and executed by the mayor as well as our financial officer. And Kathy and I went over this one last Thursday when I received these documents. So at this time, staff is recommending that the Commission accept the TIB grant offer and request that the Commission authorize the mayor to sign all the necessary documents and that the commission also authorize the city administrator to make any necessary budget modifications to go along with this.
Any questions or comments?
Just a quick comment that we have worked with TIB before and had great success with the projects that we've done in the past. So I'm very pleased that we're able to do this again, and it's always good to get grant money whenever you can.
Absolutely.
And these are both, this project and then also the Lake Boulevard projects are things that we've needed to get done for quite some time. So it's good to see it moving forward.
And just a heads up, we have all the documents for the Lake Boulevard. We'll be bringing those forward right after the first of the year, just to not plug up the last couple of meetings of the year here. So we have some design issues that need to be worked through and some contract issues there. So we'll be bringing all of that forward at that time. So.
And now that we know that the name of it is the Fuel Tax Agreement, we won't have
to
that
worry about
question.
that.
All right, there's also an opportunity for public comment on this item. If there's anybody that would like to say something concerning it, we have the list here, name and address. Seeing none, the staff's recommendation that we do, and you have read this already, but I'll reread it. It says, accept the Transportation Improvement Board grant offer, authorizing the mayor to sign all documents and the city administrator make the necessary budget modifications. Do I have a motion to approve this?
I'll second that motion.
Oh, okay. Well, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved. The ayes have it. All right, next we are into new business. It looks like the Shoreline Master Program grant, and City Administrator Dave O'Leary is going to speak to that, or Jason?
I'll be doing that. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner Pennell. As you know, the city is in the process, as required by the state, of updating its Shoreline Master Program. And to that end, the state of Washington awarded us a grant in the amount of $125,000 in 2010 to update the program. It's one of the few mandated items I think the state puts on local government that is fully funded, which is pleasant. We've been, the early stages of the grant were spent kind of figuring out the snapshot, what are our existing conditions in the shoreline environments, and what is a shoreline of the state that would be covered under this program? It's things like Oakland Bay, Goldsboro Creek, Goose Lake, and areas in the city's UGA, including Island Lake, Mill Creek, and Johns Creek. We're required by the state to plan for areas in our UGA. It doesn't mean they'll be coming into city limits anytime soon. Don't mean to imply that, but the state requires that we have them in our plan, anything in the UGA, if and when they get incorporated into city limits. We've been working very closely with our Citizens Advisory Committee that includes local residents, local stakeholders, like master builders have a representative on it, the local realtors do, there's a citizen member, some of our shoreline property owners are on the committee, and we've been having excellent dialogue over the proposed revisions to regulation within the shoreline environment. But the unfortunate consequence of that is it's taken a lot longer than I had anticipated, and we're a month and a half behind where I'd hoped we would be at this point. I was hoping to be able to release a draft plan for, among other things, commission review and public review by the end of this month. It looks like I'm looking at middle of January, end of January, before we can get a draft out to the public. But in the interim, since we got the original grant, the state has come up with a lot more information that they would like incorporated into the plan, primarily our inventory and characterization report. That's the snapshot I was speaking of, like what are the existing conditions. And my response was we don't have the funding to allow for that because that requires additional consultant time to incorporate this stuff. And since we are a little bit behind, another thing I was lamenting to the state planners was that, I really wish I had a little bit additional consultant support to help me through these last few meetings and to help present to the commission when the time comes. So to that end, what the state has offered up is an increase in our grant to the tune of $25,000 and have written an amendment to our shoreline grant that we're requesting be approved, that the mayor be authorized to sign on behalf of the city. And at the same time, what staff is requesting, that we amend the contract with our consultant to basically do what is stated in the amendment for the grant. Basically, the consultant would be shifted over to incorporate all this information to help us coordinate with our citizens committees and kind of get us through this final push. So I'm hoping, knock on wood, we can get that draft out there for public review.
Yes.
Jason, excuse me, Jason, can you explain why we have a shoreline emphasis for planning purposes and for regulatory purposes? And also, what are the deliverables ultimately when this is done? What kind of regulations will we have, that sort of thing?
Well, we have a shoreline master program right now that was adopted in 1995. You know, the regulation of shorelines was implemented by the voters of Washington in the 70s. The Shoreline Management Act was implemented. And basically, in a nutshell, the voters said, you know, we dig our shorelines. We want them planned for in a cohesive manner. We you know, don't want to see just unconsolidated development and degradation of the shoreline environment. And the unfortunate side effect, I think, that the state realized is there has been degradation of the shoreline environment. I mean, you see it every day in these walls going up with residences along lakes, along streams, along you know, Puget Sound. You see it in incremental development because the missing piece, as it were, I think, the biggest development with the pending regulation we're going to be required to plan under is the no net loss of ecological function provision. That's a big thing for the state right now. And essentially what it says is as new development comes in, we have to be able to show that there's no net loss. You're not necessarily required to improve existing degraded conditions to a certain extent, but you can't degrade, if that makes sense. So that's the biggest change, I think, in the state umbrella requirements for the Act. And the deliverables, as it were, is by June of 2013, we are to have a fully adopted, amended shoreline management program that would govern, that would basically house the development regulations for all properties within 200 feet of those identified waters. So, you know, on the Simpson Mill site, anything within 200 feet of Goldsboro Creek or Oakland Bay. Anything outside of that goes under standard permitting. Anything within 200 feet goes under shoreline permitting. Goldsboro Creek all the way up through city limits, anything within 200 feet. Goose Lake, same thing, anything within 200 feet. And I mean, does that answer the question?
I had a question on that. So within 200 feet, downtown Shelton, so you're talking about going across a road into the neighboring properties?
In certain situations, yes.
For what? I mean, what's the 200 feet in downtown Shelton? I can understand out on a shoreline where you own a 200-foot lot, but what happens if you own a lot on the other side of the road for what?
You may be required to go through shoreline permitting. It's a state mandated, the minimum distance is 200 feet, which is what the city has historically adopted, and it's what our committee opted for. The alternative is you can extend and pull in the floodplain, but that's something that actually as staff we recommended not doing for obvious reasons. Most of downtown is in a floodplain, and my take is what benefit do you get requiring a shoreline permit for the reuse of the PUD facility, for instance? I mean, there's...
We don't have too many options anyway. It's a state mandate. I mean, so again, what I said earlier, I mean, it is what it is, you know.
While you may have to go through shoreline permitting, I think, you know, you bring up a good point. Demonstrating no net loss in a situation like you're describing, where you're separated from the shoreline environment, you've got a road.
There's a road between you and the property that they're talking about, so.
It would be a less comprehensive review for impacts to shorelines, if that makes sense, than it would be if you were adjacent to the water body right next to it.
I think so. If it's across the road, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry thank you for entertaining my question there on that.
No, it's a good question. It's, that was part of I think the methodology we went through as a committee when we were walking through what are the jurisdictional options. So.
Okay, no action at this time.
We are requesting that you you be authorized, Mr. Mayor, point at you, sorry about that, that's rude. You be authorized to sign copies of the grant amendment and the amendment to the contract for services for our consultant.
Okay. I see that on your notes here. Well, a little extra money with a grant to finish up the project looks like is a good idea. Does that end your staff report?
That does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is our administration report. Administrator Dave O'Leary, anything?
The highlight of my week will be the mayor's exchange on Wednesday.
Educational.
It's just the usual day-to-day.
Very good. We have a general public comment period. If anybody would like to say anything, I don't see too many general public comment people out there. Yes?
Could I put my general public hat
Sure.
on for just
Sure.
a minute? Would
Yeah.
I need to go to the podium?
Yeah?
It's just, I just want to give a,
Oh,
I gotta say.
absolutely. You're a citizen of the city, right?
I am,
Jason Okay.
Live
Where do you
up on
live?
Don Avenue, south
right.
end of Shelton. I just want to put out a big thank you to John Johnson and the Shelton Harriers for putting on the Mistletoe Mile event. It's their second year this year. They did it right before the parade. It was run in downtown Shelton from the fire station, I think up around through 7th Street and then back down in front of First American Title. And it's a, you know, I don't know if you've heard of the Shelton Harriers. They're a local running club that has really done a lot to spur tons of interest in youth in running distance. I mean, my own kids, that's the reason I know about them. They run in the races and they love it. You know, my middle child, or my youngest rather, I never knew she was a distance runner, but she loves it and eats it up. Did really well in the race. So I just want to, you know, it's something you don't hear a lot about because he keeps it kind of on the DL. And
Yeah,
thanks to
that
John
was
and
with all
his
those people running around before the Friday
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
I saw them running around. I go, what are these people running around for? Well, now you've told me.
Yeah. It was a good event, and hopefully it continues on. So
We actually, while I was sitting in the truck waiting for the parade to start, saw a little kid, looked like probably about 3 years old, running.
yeah, I think they had runners. I mean, of literally all ages.
It was
there
amazing.
was somebody
Yeah,
knee-high to
little
a grasshopper.
tiny,
It's
yeah.
almost a true story for one of the runners.
Yeah.
And he made it the whole race, ran
Right.
the whole race.
Right. That was
So
great.
It was impressive.
All right, thank you very much. You were under the 3-minute limit, too. Administration final touches. That's an opportunity to let us know what's coming up.
Mike.
I've got a couple on here aside from the ones that are already on the sheet. Settlement agreement, finalizing of our treatment plan. It looks like we're about there. We have concurrence from USDA on the plan moving forward. We have concurrence between the city and our contractor on the terms of the agreement. So pending the contractor returning the agreement signed before next Monday, we are planning on bringing that forward for action by the commission at that time. In addition, Dennis McDonald is preparing an administrative report on the CDBG process for you guys for next Monday. Where he'll be bringing forward some final information and a recommendation on a project to move forward in that process. And as just to cover our bases touch, end of the year, trying to get some of the loose ends tied up in some projects that have delayed because of contractor issues. Moving again, in particular to the first one, pending the outcome of a discussion with Highways and Local Programs tomorrow, I may be bringing forward a local agency agreement supplement for the Downtown Creek, Franklin Street projects, so we get the funding reobligated for that and get that project moving again here first of next year. And then I have a lot of that coming right after the holidays and the first of the year to get our projects for next year moving.
Any other administration final touches?
Other touches? Have one, you'll notice on the purple sheet, I do have a presentations coming for the work plan and for the 6-year strategic plan. Our current strategic plan is expiring at the end of this year, and this one would replace it. I'll have more about that next week, but there's another thing that I think that I want to do next week that I didn't make it on, and I'll maybe I had it scheduled for a couple weeks out, but one of the things that we typically do in a retreat is walk through the prior year's work plan and see what did we get done, what did we not get done. And our last retreat was in early October, and it seemed like it was a little early to do that, but it's something that's very valuable for us so we can kind of celebrate our accomplishments. and see what work is still left. And so I believe I've scheduled that for next week, and so the department heads can come and tell you what we've gotten done this year. So anyhow, I believe that's all the touches that we've got. And there's no action on that. It's just a report. So.
All right. Very good. Well, if there's nothing.
Yeah, we're going to. Sure. Yeah, we'll have a boards and commissions discussion upcoming as well. So.
All right. Very good. And our next meeting will be Monday, December 10th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.